Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this morning with David Guillaume and Marcus Weston, and we're here to talk to you about what it means to live a spiritual life. You may be listening and already feel like you're living spiritually and be reaching for the shuffle button. But what we want to share with you today, and our goal, as with every episode of the Weekly Energy Boost, is to share with you practical and powerful tools that will help you not only navigate this coming week or this coming month, but any challenge that you face in your life. The Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual energy forecast, and David and I, and sometimes a guest, we glean through the wisdom of Kabbalah, more specifically the Zohar, to give you those practical tips and wisdom. And this week is no different. The reason we're shifting from the relationship angle to the spirituality angle is because we are shifting into the lunar month of Aquarius this week. And as such, the Aquarians, we're living in the age of Aquarius, right? It tends to be out there, zany, beyond the box kind of mindset. And those of us who are practical, as David would say, type A, sometimes the spiritual advice, the guidance, the yogis and gurus, the Aquarians tend to feel like they've mastered all that. So what we want to do is use this month to bring it down to nuts and bolts so that when those opportunities to elevate spiritually come to us, we know how to take them. And one of the reasons we invited Marcus to join us on the show, except for the fact that he is an awesome human being and a very wise person, is because Marcus is one of, like David and I, one of the Kabbalah One teachers, and he is going to be starting a daytime Kabbalah One next week. So we wanted to bring him in so that he can help us see how we advise people, how we guide people to get their land legs when it comes to spirituality. And I guess my understanding of what it means to be spiritual is combining both what is spirit and what is ritual. And that doesn't mean religion, right? We've also talked on the show numerous times about how this is not about being religious, but it's about connecting to the spiritual in a habitual and practical way. So Marcus, I don't know, I want to hear from you definitely what you're most excited about when it comes to teaching, especially beginners. I know a lot of our listeners are not beginners, but for those of you who are beginners, what excites you about teaching this course over and over and over again?
Oh, hold on a second. Marcus, before you jump in there. Yeah, there you go. Pause right there. I do want our listeners, because here's the thing. We have people who have been following us for years, and they may have a spiritual framework, but I think all that kind of goes out the window when you get tested, especially on the levels of tests that are happening right now for everybody. So as Marcus begins speaking, do feel free to start throwing questions into the chat on Facebook or YouTube. That's what we're following live on my Facebook page. We're following live. And are we on your Facebook page?
No. YouTube. I'm following YouTube.
You're YouTube. Okay, I'm following on Facebook. Elisheva is on YouTube. But questions, pain, fear, so that we know what context to share how to live a spiritual life. We want context. We don't want to just give you theory.
Where is it hardest for you to be spiritual?
Sure.
That's really David's question.
Sure.
Let us know. It's very easy to be zen and elevated when things go your way, but not necessarily when they don't go your way.
That's correct. So now we can give it over to Marcus, but do feel free to share with us how you feel and what your pain points are so we can address them throughout the show.
And if you're listening after the fact, you can continue to put your questions and comments there, and we will get to them during the week.
That's right.
Marcus, shoot.
So thank you very much. As you were talking, I was reminded of a story where my daughter, I picked her up from kindergarten recently, and she said to me, "Daddy, how do you feel?" And I was floored because as an English person, we're not very confident or comfortable or even aware of our feelings. So I think it's a great start to have people write in all their feelings and all their aspirations and dreams, and to be very open and to be very vulnerable and vocal in what we feel. What I feel about Kabbalah One, which has always been the drive for teaching as many Kabbalah Ones as I can, is it's extraordinary when you see the pain of the world or the suffering of individuals or the processes or the dreams unrealized of various individuals. And then you add in 10 hours of spiritual work. It's 10 weeks. It's 1 hour a week. And after 10 hours of spiritual work, there is rarely one person in that entire group that cannot share a miracle. And that is extraordinary. That is extraordinary. So if you ask me what excites me about that course, of course, there are the machinations and the particular teaching points, which we can discuss. But it's just that idea that as chaos and as crazy as life seems, you're a millimeter away from a complete breakthrough, a millimeter away from an absolute miracle. And that miracle really is your spiritual work. And of course, I guess like you're saying, much of our physical work is clear to us. We know what time we have to get up and get to work and perform, and certain things are clear to us. But the nature of how we live through all those clear things is very unclear. And that spiritual movement is the source of miracles. So that's what excites me.
All right, so I'm gonna stop right there. I'm a big fan of Kabbalah One, but let's put that on the shelf for a moment. The question I want to ask you is, as I heard that, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. As I heard that, I thought to myself,
when you say you're playing devil's advocate, does it mean that you're not actually this normal?
Exactly. And I want to know what, when you say live a spiritual life, tell me practically what you mean by that. Because I'm seeing the questions that people are writing where I think in theory that sounds great. How do people handle now, today, some of the confusion, some of the fears, right? So, some weeks are confusing, some weeks are scary, some weeks are painful. So it's kind of all these things keep happening. What are you suggesting now? Oh, here's a better question. How are you dealing with it? How do you personally deal with the challenges that you face on a daily basis?
So this is what's great, because I think if you ask a dozen teachers, you'll have a dozen answers, and each one is valuable. And I think that's what's great about the center, that they have so many teachers that can talk to so many different types of people.
I agree.
I tell you my personal passion, if you like, and that is all around identifying and transcending ego. Identifying and transcending ego, meaning the world around us right now is potty, right? Whichever part of the world you're in, you have your own version of insanity.
Would you say a party story, or potty?
What's that?
Potty or party?
No, potty is an English expression to refer to anything that's adjectively nuts.
All right, keep going. That's good.
So potty as in, crazy. But if you can somehow identify through any stories of craziness, your own belief systems, your own view of translating that event, your own version of the small slice of understanding that you're taking on it, your own reaction to that event, your own thoughts about yourself, about life, about society, about your own safety, about government, about the creator, about other people. You're constantly framing external situations through internal lenses. And those internal lenses, as you identify and move them, called your nature, you shift the world around you. And that miracle is not based on environment, it's based on perspective. And it's based on identifying all the limiting belief systems, all the limitations, the ways that we encumber ourselves through consciousness.
All right,
that moves.
You want to say something else, Sheva? Because I was about to make it even more practical.
Shoot.
So let's make it practical here with some questions. For example, people are afraid of instability in the United States. What are you going to tell them practically to do right now?
I give you an example. Again, my daughter seems to be coming up in many examples this morning. So,
My 2-year-old peed on me yesterday, so I would like you to tell me what you would do. Is that 15 seconds from when you change the diaper, you take him to the bath? That happened, so I would like to also know how you handle that.
There are certain things that you might deserve. That perhaps was one of them.
I think that cleansed some past life stuff.
In terms of I walked into the bathroom when my daughter's having a bath, and I said, "Miriam, why is my cupboard in such a mess?" Knowing that she'd scrummaged through it and messed everything up. And she said, "Daddy, is it maybe because you're such a mess?"
Oh, that's good.
And my point is, the goal of life is to translate external experience into internal growth.
That's
Can
powerful.
you feel the eye of the storm in the storm? Can you feel a growth of stability when things are unstable? And is not the only test of your stability when things are unstable? Because we're all good when good happens. The question is, when things turn south, what happens to your nature? How do you treat other people? How do you wake up in the morning? How happy are you? That's the real test. I can be kind when people are kind to me, but the second someone's not, my true, perhaps my inner ego shows its ugly self.
Beautiful.
So in a situation where I'm seeing so much instability, this is the time where actual proof points of stability are highlighted. What do you have internally defined as your stability? Was it that you were dependent upon government as the source of your stability, in which case life is very flawed? Life is very flawed. The light, the universe doesn't want you to rely upon anything external for your own happiness, security, and stability.
Sheva.
For me, I think one of the most, if not the most powerful teaching from level 1 or even across the board is that I can choose. I define how what's happening outside affects me, right? I look at not only students going through the process, I teach it to my own children. I have to repeat it to myself all the time. It's up to me what meaning I give what's happening around me. And it's up to me what energy I give it, what mood I give it, what emotion I give it. And the fact that we have a choice, I think that that's one of the things I wished I could shout from the top of the Empire State Building last week is, you guys, we get to choose how this affects us. I got texts from people, I'm losing sleep, I can't stop crying. Yes, it's difficult and it's painful when members of your species are behaving so badly. But at the same time, the way that I look at it is, okay, I can't control them. I can't control the politicians. I can't control the pandemic. I can't control the sun or the clouds or anything else. What can I control? And at the end of the day, like what Marcus was saying, me, I'm the only one I can control. Last week we had a conversation about toxic relationships and when to stay and when to go. And I said there, and I probably said it on 50 shows before, if you think it's hard to control your husband, try controlling your ex-husband, right? There is no, anything outside of you, to Marcus's point, anything outside of you isn't in your wheelhouse. Your wheelhouse is what's within you. And because what Kabbalah teaches is that everything externally is there to facilitate a transformation in you, an upgrade to you, an awareness to you. So if you're constantly looking at the outside and trying to manipulate the outside, it's only going to have to come harder and sharper and louder to elicit that progression inside you. So that whenever I see something or I experience something that makes me uncomfortable, awakens pain or insecurity or fears, the first thing I'm looking at is, what's in it for me? The universe is showing me this, even though the universe shows us all the same things sometimes, and that I think is something to talk about as well. Why is this? What is in this for me? What can I do with it? How can I use it to step up?
I want to add to that. When things get complicated, I try to fall back on some simple concepts. and one thing I've learned, and we all teach this, that as soon as you're the effect of something, you sacrifice or you forego miracles. So every time you become the effect of something, you either start to lose financial blessings, you start to diminish in health, you start to lose some benefit in your relationships. It goes down. There's a downward spiral that occurs the minute you become the effect of something. And that should be just like, that should be the barometer of my spiritual life. So, for example, there are things that don't bother me, so I don't really care. But sometimes you hear something, and that hits a chord. I've been polling people because I want to hear how people feel. So I spoke to some people yesterday. I said, well, how do you feel about, I don't know, what happened to this and what happened to the president? Oh, so everyone has different opinions. I like to hear what they say. So some people are like, oh, I don't care about any of that, but this I care about. And what's interesting is that very thing that they care about, they're actually becoming the effect of. So it's making them emotional. How do you know you're the effect? You're becoming emotional. It's consuming your mind. So as you're listening to this, I want you to try to take inventory here if this is you. It's consuming your mind. You're thinking about it all the time. You're thinking about it before you go to bed. You're thinking about it in the shower. You're thinking about it right now as you're hearing this show. It's consuming you. So when something consumes you, it means you're the effect. It means you're disconnected from the light of the Creator. So it means that nothing good can come from that moment on. And I think what Marcus is saying about ego, the way I define it, is the way I apply it to myself is ego is really me trying to use all my resources to control a situation. And that will always disconnect us from the realm of blessings. It might look like it's working, but in the end...
And it might work in the short term.
Most times it actually does work in the short term in order to hook you. The way drugs work in the short term, because it hooks you. And then later on, you sacrifice and you lose. So that's for me the barometer. As soon as I see the effect of something, I said, nope, I can't play that game. I was watching a political show yesterday, actually, just for 10 minutes to see what's going on. And there was a moment it started to affect me. I turned it off. I didn't turn it off. You can't lose your free will. You can't lose being in control. As soon as you lose being in control, you have to turn it off.
That's a great point, because I think, and maybe we've spoken about it before, but people don't realize that they can choose to turn off the news, or that they can choose to not answer the phone when a family member, and I don't mean ignoring, but I mean, if you know that you are not in a space to be proactive, to be
you got to pause,
peaceful, to be loving, to be caring, pause in that moment and say, what do I choose? Do I choose to be at the mercy of this scenario, this broadcast, this social media barrage of whatever nonsense I'm getting? Or can I choose, I worry about what I'm saying only because it's not external. It's, can I choose to do something that will help me stay plugged in and connected to my true essence, which is light and love and joy and fulfillment? Or am I going to let this external catalyst, I don't know what you would call it, an external stimulus to take my power away?
I definitely agree. I would also add that you don't want to get into the routine of turning all those stimuli off. I think the testament to one's own spiritual strength is being able to look at or watch or to continue viewing the craziness and to find within self the reason why I do want to turn it off, which sometimes I agree, but to identify that has a name to it. That is a thought or a feeling or a belief system or an opinion or a judgment. There's a label to that. And that label probably has a lot of ramification into many other parts of my life. On the one hand, it's the news. On the other hand, it might well be my relationship. It's my marriage. It's my parenting. It's my money. It's my career. It's my friendships. It's many other things in my life. And so that suddenly becomes a very compelling energy that the universe wants me to work on. So I can turn the TV off. And sometimes I should, just for survival. But ultimately, I want to be able to, and I need evidence from the cosmos somehow. How am I finding what to change within? And so eventually, I've got to get to the place where I can look at it, turn nothing off, but hold it, embrace it, allow it, accept it, unwrap it.
Not in a numb way. Not in a numb way. That's the point.
If you turn too many things off, you can become numb.
Right.
It could go either way, right? Yeah.
I don't know if you have the same, now we're talking about your Kabbalah One. I don't know if you have the same curriculum of Kabbalah One that I teach or Elisheva teaches. I'm sure I think the first 5 classes were all
No one has your curriculum, David.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Let's be honest. If you've ever taken this course before and you take it with David, you'll realize you've never taken it before.
I like outlines, but I like to deviate from them based on the audience's desire. You have to you have to be nuanced like that. Okay. So my point is, for those of you taking Kabbalah One, what you're hearing are the steps that you're learning, I think, in the first probably 3 or 4 classes. When the challenge occurs, and we can't forget this, because I have students in Kabbalah 3 now that say, only now do I realize that Kabbalah 1 is the most powerful course. Kabbalah 1 is the most powerful course. You don't know it when you're taking it. You think it's powerful, but you don't realize that it is the deepest course that exists.
The first 5 classes. Everything.
Yeah, people's lives change within 4 classes. I kind of give them that guarantee. I tell people, if your life doesn't change, I'll pay for your course. But the point is that the steps of a challenge. So we're all feeling some form of a challenge, and it may not even have anything to do with what's going on politically. It may have to be maybe something's happening at home. Maybe you're going through a divorce, like we talked about last week. Maybe someone broke up with you. Maybe someone stole something from you. Maybe someone is not giving you love. Maybe you're just not inspired. Maybe you're bored. These are all challenges. But step 1 is, this is an opportunity from the light of the Creator, and you have to pause. You have to pause not being reactive. You have to pause. So the basics, we're just going over it again. You have to pause the ways you usually look for instant gratification. I confronted someone today actually about some ego they had. And it was funny because the way he responded was, you're right. And I said,
that's also reactive.
I said, you just were reactive. He's like, what do you mean? I agreed with you. I said, but that's your way of not feeling the pain, is quickly agreeing so that you don't have to feel the burn of the ego hit that just happened. And some people either shut down or they agree right away. Everyone's got their reactive behavior. Reactive doesn't mean you're an evil person. It just means you respond so quickly because you don't want to feel.
It's that knee jerk.
It's the knee jerk because you don't want to feel the pain. I was looking at a trailer. You know what? I'll tell you. I was looking at a trailer of a movie where this guy all of a sudden goes deaf. I forgot what it was called. And then I immediately turned off the trailer. I said, I don't like that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to have to think about what would happen if I went deaf. God forbid. But then later on I realized, that was reactive. I should probably go see that movie and go through it. I was just thinking about that. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm trying to find ways of running away from painful situations that maybe I don't want to deal. Maybe past life something happened. I don't know. But I was such a knee jerk, turn off that thing. I don't want to deal with that. That it at least deserves the question of, am I running away?
I think that's a great question to ask our listeners now, is what are those knee-jerk reactions that you have? I say knee-jerk, but sometimes it's like an allergic reaction. There's no thought behind it. It's an automatic program that takes over when a certain inner button is pushed or a pain is poked, right? A wound is sprinkled by lemon juice, and it's not even you. You're not thinking about it. You're not controlling it. It's just, that's my response. And what's interesting is that we have a couple really great questions here that I do want to get to on YouTube. The key, and this is to me what being spiritual is reconditioning that response. Some people think, well, if I didn't do it perfectly, I didn't do good. The goal here is not perfection. The goal is progression. So that if yesterday David's knee-jerk reaction was, I don't want to even have to face this, and he turns it off, to tomorrow he sees something uncomfortable and he's able to listen to 30 more seconds of it, or to have a conversation with someone about it, it's already a win. I had a conversation with someone about this exact thing. A student asked me last week, I thought it was a brilliant question. let's say you find yourself in that reaction mode, but you catch yourself before you go full on, right? You're there maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds. How do you, first of all, what about the darkness that's revealed while you're reactive? But second of all, how do you recoup, right? You realize you said something you shouldn't have, you behaved in a way that was less than noble. I don't know what the exact words is, but so this was the conversation. It's not a zero-sum game. If I am better today than I was yesterday, I won. And better is subjective, right? Better for me, a win for me is probably not a win for, right. It doesn't look like David and Marcus's wins. So part of, I think the stepping into a more spiritual way of living is to stop looking outside of you. I think that's the one thing in common that everything we've talked about has so far is it's not outside of you, it's within.
Let me add to that. Stop looking outside of you when you're upset. But when you're not upset anymore and you feel great, start looking outside of you, because that's when you need to contribute energy. I was just thinking of a student from a while ago, and she always had problems, and she always working on herself, my ego, my, self, my react. And then I realized also something else. She just doesn't add value to anybody in the world. Like, she's just with herself and her spirituality. Because I realized that at least when times are good, pick up the phone and add some value, like give some energy. Nobody feels energy from her. I was just thinking about that. So this was from someone a long time ago. I don't even know where they're at now with it, but it's an example that you need to not look outside of you when you're upset. But as soon as you're not upset anymore and you're in a calm place and you're in a good place, that's exactly when you need to start looking outside of you so you can start giving.
Marcus, can I pose a question to you? Or you have to
Marcus, you have to leave in a minute or two, right?
Yeah, 5.
So
Okay.
we have a question, which I think is great because it's coming from someone who has taken Kabbalah One, but doesn't feel like it feels like they're falling off the horse more than they're riding the horse, so to speak. Is what would be your advice, your suggestion on how we can feel or ensure that we're connected, ensure as best we can, that we're connected to the Creator on a daily basis?
So, I mean, it's a good question. And I think bounces off what you both just said. There has to be this dance, and it is a dance. There's no pill. It's a dance where you're feeling, if you're too internal, there has to be something external. And if you're too external, there has to be something internal. Meaning, there are times when you need to be looking inside, identifying what it is within me in terms of a level of consciousness to change, a belief system, a fear and anxiety, an anger, a judgment, a control issue, something within me. And then there has to be external expression of that. So, I can tell you the most connected people I imagine from the course seem to be those who have great moments of pause and introspection and can look inside and identify a certain belief system that has been blocking much of my life, or at least one important area of my life. But then it seems also to be married to an external effort where a community of people support each other. And it's interesting, I was reading an article about how the 3 top reasons for longevity, the resources for long life, are not the diet and the exercise thing, which most people might assume. They're around social, community, and spiritual attributes. So there's a tremendous power in being connected to the Creator, in being connected to your soul, and being connected to your future, your potential. If you're on a path with like-minded people, if you can connect somehow, whether it be mentor groups or through the center communities, but that's one part internal where you're really chiseling, studying, and learning something deeper about yourself and your soul. And then one part outside where you really have a place, a part, and an expression in a spiritual community.
One of the things we talk about in Kabbalah, especially in the beginning classes, is this whole idea that we want to shift people's focus on having a relationship with the Creator, which is a universal force of energy, as opposed to their focus, which is on how do I control this physical world in order to feel safe and secure, because we all want to feel safe. We all want to feel secure. We want to have certainty in our future. we're not quite sure how to do that. We think if we amass wealth, or if we build like a lot of goodwill and build a network or whatever it is, then we have a little bit more security and safety. The truth is, it looks like that may be the case, but that's not, because people lose things in a moment and everything turns upside down in a moment. However, if you build your relationship with the Creator, which is everything that we teach in Kabbalah, build your relationship with the Creator. One of the most powerful things I learned is if 7 billion people, let's say, worked to stop you from finding your soulmate. Imagine 7 billion people hate you. Everybody hates you. And they all started a campaign to make sure that you would stay single for the rest of your life, right? So I'm talking to people who are single, because sometimes people are afraid, like, is my soulmate out there? Will I have a relationship? Will I not? So imagine you want to find love, but 7 billion people hate you. In fact, every potential soulmate hates you. And there's a campaign where every billboard is just saying negative things about you, putting you in a bad light. You would think that your chances of finding a soulmate would be pretty much nothing, right? Now, this is what I love. Our teachers have told us, if you're connected with the light of the Creator, and you're the cause, and you do all your spiritual work, all the stuff we outline in Kabbalah One and so on, then you must meet your soulmate. Well, what about the 7 billion people that are stopping that from happening? Well, this is where we realize more powerful is the light of the Creator than if 7 billion people tried to fight the light of the Creator. And I think that when you remember that, you realize, all the chaos that's going on around me, even if everyone tried to stop me from having a good life, as long as I am connected to the light of the Creator, which is what we learn here, and it's a daily work. It's not like set it and forget it, or I just do this 1 or 2 things. It's a daily work. But you stay connected, then nothing can touch you. Nothing can touch you.
That talks to me as well, because you physically, and we do this, we spend a lot of time working on how we look externally, and the fact is, you can be gym fit, but if your spirit's not right, something's empty. You know it. You won't feel enough. You won't feel, that's not even good. You can maximize your 5 senses with the best glasses or hearing aids, but you won't be able to see around corners, which your spiritual work can give you. Mm-hmm. You won't be able to hear what other people mean, which your spiritual work can give you. And you might have a nice life, but you won't understand life purpose necessarily, which your spiritual work can give you. So it really is a different world of experience that Kabbalah One gives people, which is evidenced by the fact that in 10 weeks, people have extraordinary miracles.
So Marcus, your Kabbalah One is January 19th. What day and time is that?
It's a Tuesday. It is 1:30 on the East Coast and 10:30 on the West Coast.
Got you.
And
so
something else in the middle.
I think it's 6:30 Greenwich Mean Time, if I saw correctly. So that means that this is, we actually get comments all the time. Why don't we teach things for the other side of the planet? We're here in Los Angeles. Marcus is in New York. So that's an option for those of you who are listening in Europe, Asia, and Africa, basically, but also for our friends in North and South America who need the daytime, have the time during the day, and maybe can't afford that time in the evening. So we want to make sure that if you need that link, you can email energyboost@kabbalah.com and I will send it to you.
Or just go to kabbalah.com. It's right there.
Right. The click Kabbalah One and you will see the first thing will pop up will be Marcus's class. Parting words before you jump off and get into your other class, Marcus?
Woo! Well, I just think,
where do you get those cashmere? Where do you get those cashmere
people watching
sweaters?
this, I guess they're either inquisitive or they know there's a kind of spiritual importance to life. But I would encourage you to share that spiritual importance. Sometimes, you can be wealthy and wise, but still, if you're not sharing your talents, there's some emptiness. So share, invite 5 people, share what you feel, what you know. You'll be amazed how many people around you will write you within 10 weeks with a miracle story.
And it's pay what you can. So it's not financially prohibitive. It's pay whatever you can. And that's how we're opening it up to people in the world.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marcus, for joining us. We'll see you hopefully next week, Tuesday, January 19th at 10:30 a.m. our time. Good luck. And I actually, the question that we got about how do you make sure you're connected every day? I'm a very practical person. I'm all for setting alarms on your phone pop-ups on your computer. I've gone through it when I've gone through especially difficult times. I've even asked friends to check in with me and make sure that I'm sticking to the commitment that I made, the path that whatever it is I'm working on. And to that point, the mere fact that you're able to pause and assess your reaction, how do I want to respond? What's happening here? Who is in control, my ego or my soul? Means you are connected. Now, David, something I learned from David over the last few years that we've been doing the show is that the easiest way to make sure that you're connected is to reach for the lowest hanging fruit. Now, I encourage everybody to do this exercise, to think about, to write down even, what's something I know I need to change about myself? It can be a physical habit. It can be an emotional reaction. It can be the way you're speaking, you're eating, you're exercise. It can be anything, and work on those things. The miracles that Marcus was talking about that taking Kabbalah One elicits is because people look at their immediate reality and pick those fruits. Mm-hmm. So this is a week. We have the new moon, which is Wednesday night and Thursday. So from Wednesday night sunset, wherever you live, to Thursday night sunset, we have the opportunity to plant positive seeds, to create a new mold, to break last month's mold, which I'm sure everybody is eager to break at this point, and to create a new habit, a new form. So we always say it on the Kabbalistic new moon, we recommend that because you're creating the formula for the coming month, that you do your best to be as proactive, as sharing, as outside of your comfort zone as you can. Be your best you. Smile even if you don't want to, because that's going to make smiling all month easier. And this month is definitely going to be easier. I think we're coming at the month of Capricorn can be difficult. It can be challenging, but the commitment, the desire, and that's one of the things that I think does define a spiritual life is intention. Having the intention to reveal my unique light, having the intention to take away some of the power from my ego this month as much as I can is a very powerful intention for those 24 hours, and it'll make everything else we do in the coming month a lot easier. The other question that we had that I wanted to get to is, and the truth, maybe we won't get to it. Actually, we got a question here. I feel silly now. We have a question here asking, how do you manage to be spiritual when your social group doesn't support you and you don't want to lose them? Marcus explained or touched on the idea about having people around you, being a part of a shared community, a group, having a social experience with supportive people. We're actually talking about that next week. We're actually going to talk about creating those surroundings that will support you to do your spiritual work. So I have to promise we will get to that. And before we do, I know that David is holding on to, he's looking at me.
I'm listening. No.
He's looking at me like he wants to,
I'm listening.
Wants to share. I think that the other thing, actually now I see we're running out of time. I wanted to read something online, on air, that I found very inspiring and powerful, and I want to give it some context. As many of you who've been listening for the last 6 months or so know, our teacher, Karen Berg, left the physical reality, I think it was end of July this year. And I was researching on the subject for today's class, and an article that Karen wrote last year, meaning June 2020, so literally like 7 weeks before, Karen wrote this. And the question is, Karen was answering a question. This is on our blog, Karen's blog on Kabbalah.com. Why does it feel harder than ever to be spiritual? And I'm going to skip around it a little bit, but I think it's a really powerful answer. And I think it'll give us 10 minutes of stuff to talk about as we close out the show. So Karen writes, I've been told by many friends and students in the past few years that it is becoming increasingly difficult to invest in spirituality. The energetic atmosphere seems heavier than it did a decade or so ago. There is a curtain that veils the vast importance of something as simple as a morning meditation or an evening prayer. We're living in an age of paradox, where this thing we call spirituality is both more necessary than ever before in history, and yet also more difficult. Why is it more necessary now more than ever? And why is it so difficult? Well, just look around. It doesn't take more than glancing at a newspaper to see the chaos that surrounds us. Every day we hear about new disasters, are plagued by terror, and are grief-stricken over the loss of souls. It seems logical that with all the negativity in the world today, we would feel an intense need for spirituality. However, at the same time, our efforts in both study and action have become more challenging. People often ask, how are we to believe that in these times we can impact the world for the better? After all, there were much higher and more righteous souls who came before us. You mean to tell me that Moses and Rav Shimon were unable to bring redemption, but we're going to do it? The answer is only we can do it. You see, one of the Kabbalah Center's core teachings is the idea that from the greatest darkness, we can reveal the most light. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, for example, the Kabbalists teach that an elevated righteous soul like Moses could perform the biggest spiritual action in the world, and it would not come close to revealing as much light as if the most selfish of persons extended themselves to share with another. We are living in a time when it is not easy to have certainty. Therefore, every second that we manage to have certainty reveals more goodness in the world than we can imagine. We are living in a time when it is not easy to reach out and share with another. And so when we do share even just a smile with a stranger on the street, we are in fact creating an opening through which God's abundance can pour into our lives. We are living in a generation where we have a greater opportunity than the great souls that came before us, because it is in the depths of darkness that we can reveal the brightest of light. Never forget that.
Very nice.
That to me sums it up. And again, it was written literally 6 months ago, 7 months ago, in the midst of the pandemic and everything else that's been going on here. And I think it puts a spin on everything that we've been talking about. Not only is being spiritual, studying spirituality, having a spiritual practice good for the practitioner, it's more important, more vital in this time in history, and more impactful in this time in history than ever before.
I'm seeing some of the comments coming through as you're speaking, as you shared that, and the positive energy that's coming in with Aquarius, which is this Wednesday night. What is that, January 14th?
13th.
That's going to be in the whole world for all of us is different than the energy of this month in the way that you will be able to think on a bigger scale with your desire. And what I mean by that is everything that we see in our lives and that we feel, according to the Zohar, is a reflection on what we desire. And there are desires that we're conscious of and desires we're unconscious of. We've talked about it 100 times on the shows. And we're complicated creatures. We have so many things going on inside of us that we're not aware of. And all of these forces inside of us are craving different things. And as a result, that's what we're attracting into our lives. You speak to the person who just can't break through a financial ceiling. No matter what he or she does, they just can't break through that level of income, or they just can't land that next level of their career. Why? It's not that they're not working hard. It's not that they're not smart. It's not that they don't have the opportunity, but there's something inside of them that pushes and pulls. There's something that says, yes, I want the next level. And then there's another side to them that says, no, I don't want it, and therefore sabotages it. The power of what Aquarius is going to bring for us is to rise above those negative subconscious desires that have been formed in us, not just from past life, but some trauma we've had as children, trauma that we have had even in the past couple of weeks. If something traumatizes you, it normally creates some kind of negative belief system or desire inside of you that then impedes future miracles. And it's very important that we all become aware of both the desires that we're conscious of, that we might be aware of, that we share with our friends, that we put in our vision board and goals that we have. That's the easy stuff. But then there's the stuff that's hidden and that we're not so sure of, which are our insecurities and our fears and whatnot. And challenges actually bring up those desires. So when Mark is talking about ego and his daughter said, what is he?
Maybe you're a mess, Dad.
Maybe you're a mess. That means, let's say for Marcus, I'm just guessing here, that maybe that's not something he realized, and then he looked inside himself and said, there's a part of my life that I like that it's disorganized, or there's a part of my life that, whatever it is, Well, we would never admit something like that. But deep down inside, it's there. So any pain you're going through right now, it's actually highlighting some negative belief systems you have or negative desires you have, which maybe you didn't think you had, and maybe you're ashamed of having, and therefore want to kind of point the finger somewhere else so you don't have to kind of look at that. But that's really what Aquarius, this new energy of Aquarius, is going to give us, to see all of it, and then to realize that you have the power, that if you want something, you will begin the process of having it. It won't just come to you, but you'll start, the universe will guide you in that direction, and just follow that path if you really want it. It's going to guide you there so that you can earn it.
Can we give our listeners one mindful practice to do this week?
I think it's so important that when times are intense, that you become the opposite of intense. So you always need to do the opposite of what's going on outside of you. If it's intense externally, you should calm down, have a latte, relax.
Latte doesn't calm people down, David.
Calm yourself.
Chamomile tea. David meant chamomile tea.
And what one of the best advice Michael Berg told me to not be reactive is like, don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take anything so seriously when it's intense. When it's not intense and everything is like status quo, then you need to awaken some intensity inside of you. But you should always be balancing the energy that's outside, not succumbing to the energy that's on the outside.
So if I could sum it up, take the cues from what's going on around you and be the balance.
Be the other side of it, and you'll see that is what you're essentially doing is not being reactive. That's what ends up happening, is that you're not being reactive. When everything is calm, then you need to start taking initiative. And then when everything gets intense, you need to take a step back.
Absolutely. So again, for those of you that tuned in mid-episode, we want to invite you to join the Level 1 course that Marcus is beginning January 19th at 6:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So it works for everybody. It's at 1:30 East Coast time as well, if you're on the East Coast and you'd like to listen to a live course that's interactive daytime during the day. And for everybody else, we want to invite you to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share these episodes. Whatever is working for you inevitably is probably going to work for the people around you. We are on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Castbox, Stitcher, Pandora, Amazon. Insight Timer as well. And it's amazing. Actually, that was one of the things I wanted to open with, is that in this past year, in these 12 months or even 10 months, I know that for us the Kabbalah Center has grown in immeasurable, slightly measurable, but mostly immeasurable ways. I know that from being a part of an Insight Timer, they have 500,000 meditators a week, which is really phenomenal. Yeah. I think, a day, or maybe it is a week. I need to do my research better. But the point is, it really is the answer to everything that's going on around us, and it's the purpose. And we're going to talk more about that in the coming episodes. Next week, we'll be talking about creating an environment, a community, a social group to support spiritual work and the different ways to do that and why to do that. So we encourage you to continue to write your comments and questions on whatever platform you're listening to. You can always reach out to us at energyboost@kabbalah.com, and we answer your questions there as well as live on the show sometimes. Have a fabulous week, and thanks for listening to the Weekly Energy Boost.